Off top, in 1934, U.S. government printed $100,000 bills with Woodrow Wilson's face on. Today, that will be worth $2.25 million. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
All right, Charlie, I picked the money off top intentionally because, good Lord, Jalen Hurts just got sexier.
Yeah.
He went from being a handsome guy who's kind of rich to who cares what you look like, because you got 177 guaranteed and 255 over 5 years. Get real cute. I know you watch Succession too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Logan, R.I.P. He was had some attractive women around, even though he was not the cutest, because his money was quite long. So Jalen Hurts, like Logan Roy, is the centerpiece to everything that happens in the Eagles world. So he deserves all that money. I'm happy for him. There's not a whole bunch to talk about. I think it's a fair deal. He got a huge jump in the fully guaranteed, or not fully guaranteed, in the guaranteed money. I think it was like 100. Who was before that? I guess Russell had like 100 guaranteed, right?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Kyler Murray's guarantees were lower than Russell, but anyway, it's a huge jump. It's in guaranteed money. I think the conversation is like how this impacts Lamar's negotiations. I'm not sure. One of the big things that we always talk about is once you pay your quarterback, it gets more difficult, I guess, to win a championship. But the Eagles have done so well with these draft picks that something that you and I talk about a lot is how important it is, I think, to draft well in order to win a Super Bowl. And that includes drafting quarterback well, but you got to get discounts. And when you get great players at rookie prices, your team's going to be good. And they had 2 draft picks last year in the first round. They have 2 this year in the first round. Some of these boys going to hit, and they are going to be all right for years to come.
And actually, I think it's interesting. We saw how the Eagles have allocated their money in a certain way. Like they are turning over their defense next year, 2 guys on rookie contracts, 2 Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean in certain ways, and being like, we are going to prioritize our spending on Jalen Hurts. And I think that's fascinating, not because it's you're paying a franchise quarterback. It's fascinating because they are paying Jalen Hurts off of last year and what they think he can be going forward. And I think that is a resounding endorsement of the player that I think we're going to see over the course of this contract. And it's something that we've talked about in the past about the Lamar Jackson stuff and about other quarterback contracts. It's not about the 177 guaranteed. He's getting $51 million every year for the course of that deal. He's getting the 255 or renegotiating to help the team and kick it down the road even more.
And still, he's going to get it or get more.
Yeah,
like the renegotiation is not going to be a drawback for Jalen Hurts. He's going to renegotiate, extend his contract at whatever the value is for a starting quarterback at that point. So he's getting it all, whether it's fully guaranteed on the paper or not. Unless there's some catastrophic injury, he's going to get all that money. Because, I mean, Carson Wentz got all that money. Even though he didn't get it all with the Eagles, he got it all eventually.
Jared Goff, same thing. People were like, how are we going to get out of this contract? It's like, nope, he got it all. He's kind of good again.
Yeah, I mean, the Jalen Hurts thing is interesting because I don't hear the conversation around Jalen Hurts that we hear around Lamar Jackson about the limitations. And I don't think Jalen Hurts, although this season, like his passing numbers were great. Like I don't view Jalen Hurts as a better passer than Lamar Jackson. I think he is an incredible player, but I think they're both pretty good passers with some limitations. And I think this is about building a team around a guy and recognizing what he does well and what he's special at, and then giving him supports for the things that he doesn't do well. So like incredible offensive line, incredible playmakers at receiver, and then build the offense around his special abilities.
And I also think that this is a bet on continued improvement. It's like what we saw with Josh Allen. It's like, and it's actually an interesting contrast point to Lamar Jackson, because a ton of discussion we've had about Lamar is youngest MVP. He's the MVP, blah, 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 blah. With that said, when Lamar Jackson was the MVP, Jalen Hurts was at Oklahoma because he had to leave Alabama because he couldn't be 2 out for a starting job. Joe Burrow had just finished an underwhelming season at LSU.
Right.
And we weren't sure he was going to even start his senior year. Like stuff has changed so much. And I genuinely feel like some of these quarterback contracts are a weather vane for how teams can see them in the future. Right. And that's where I wonder, does Lamar come back to the table and basically be like, the 240, every dime guaranteed, I can bend on that now. There are good deals out there for me that are in a different range.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that he can credibly? I think so. And I'm trying to be careful to like not let my bias leak in too much, because I have like some Lamar bias. I said he was the best quarterback in the draft the year that he came out, and no one wanted him. And for whatever other reasons, I have Lamar biases. So like, am I wrong to think that he deserves what Jalen Hurts has gotten?
I don't think so. I think it was wrong to assume that any quarterback other than Patrick Mahomes was going to get the contract that, if Patrick Mahomes was up now, was going to get the contract handed to him that Deshaun Watson got. I think that was always based on the way that NFL state media reacted to that contract demand. Mm-hmm. I think it was clear that was never going to happen. I know that's like a hard thing to say, but it just wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it depends on the resolve. It depends on the team, and it depends on the player. I get you. Like, by and large, the league never wants something like that to happen. But who's willing to give up on a franchise quarterback? You think that if Joe Burrow is like, nah, give me this fully guaranteed contract, that they're not going to figure out how to get him that money? Or, I mean,
that's a good point. Maybe it's just that, like, so these numbers have become so staggering too, where it's like, you're going to get all your money. Who really cares if it's 180 or 240? This is more of a pride point. But I don't know, the reaction to that, and also the fact that the two guaranteed contracts that we saw, Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson, both, I guess TBD on the Deshaun Watson one if he ends up playing better, but they're more or less disastrous last year with what they did to the team because of it.
But I guess that's, to your point, I don't think that it matters. If the player, you're not going to move on from Justin Herbert. So if Justin Herbert does not show up to camp when he is up for his deal, they're going to give him the money. I mean, maybe they'll have the resolve to be like, hey, we're in a new city. We're trying to get a fan base. We have one of the best quarterbacks in football. Yeah, we'll let him take a whole year off. Like, I don't know that I could say maybe some teams have the resolve to do that, but all the teams don't. There's a team that's going to be like, all right, after a couple weeks of training camp, and they look at what they got in the backup situation, they're going to come around. And the Ravens still could be that team.
Yeah. Oh, I think we are careening towards Lamar Jackson back on the Ravens. I genuinely think that if you had asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have been like, okay, put down the crack pipe. He's gone. But like,
it feels like he gets a win too, which I think is always the thing that
they both win.
Yeah. It's something that is always in my mind when you're talking about negotiations, especially public negotiations, is you need to give your opponent a graceful exit. Like it does not pay to like dance on the grave and dunk on them. So the Ravens need to be able to say that Lamar Jackson won in this deal. And
so do you think that Lamar is happy about the deal that Jalen Hurts got?
Probably not.
And that's where it's interesting, because how is it going to feel like a win for him?
Well, I think it feels like a win if he gets more. If he gets $1 more, then it feels like a win. Maybe. But I guess the tough thing, and this is part of the drawbacks, I've been like defending him about not having an agent. One of the drawbacks about not having an agent is not being able to like coordinate or communicate at all, because I think it's more likely like collective action is really where the power lies with the players. And if all the quarterbacks was like, you know what, the face of your league, where none of us are showing up without guaranteed contracts, that's a different story, which is something you have to, I doubt all the quarterbacks would want to do that, because somebody offered me 177 guaranteed. I'm going to say, sorry, brothers, good luck to you, but I'm going to sign this paper.
Right. And so that win to me seems like it's probably not going to happen now. But if the win was for him to go from 130 guaranteed to that 160 to 180, that seems on the table. Getting a contract in line with Hurts seems on the table. And to me, it seems like really advantageous for the Ravens, who like need to figure out their cap situation. Like they're hamstrung in building their team around him if they can't get this deal done, because he's not going to play on the 32. So it has to be a meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. You think he wouldn't show up? Yeah, I don't think he'll show up on the 32 either.
Well, the 32 is not beneficial for him whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's $32 million, but I get you. Yeah.
But it seems also like that's not just the only option. The option is still to negotiate a deal that's bigger than that. It's just not the deal he initially wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope he plays.
I do too. I do think he lost leverage on what he wanted today. I genuinely do.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue that he didn't. Every deal that's not fully guaranteed between Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson is a bit of a strike on his leverage. But the one thing that, if you've learned nothing from me talking about leverage and negotiations, it's like what you can make the other side credibly believe is your alternative. That's your leverage. Yeah. So like, it doesn't, I guess in our view, his leverage has changed. But if he's serious about, no, I'm not showing up, his leverage has not changed. If the Ravens believe he's serious about, no, I'm not showing up, his leverage has not changed. I think the story around it changes, and I've like softened, like, oh man, it's gonna get really hard to get. But his leverage only changes when his opinion changes or his resolve shifts. And I don't know how that's impacted. I think that this would shift my resolve. If I look up and like, man, another person signed a deal.
And to me, more than anything, that shifted the narrative on it online. Right. The reaction to Jalen Hurts is fascinating, because I think he's like largely beloved. Like you saw initially, all the tweets were like, "This is such a special person. I've never seen a reaction like Nick Saban did after he came in relief and won that national semifinal game. He's loved by X, Y, and Z." Part of Lamar has to want that too. He has to want the adulation that will come with signing this deal and people being like, you're great, we love you. Yeah. Unless we don't think he cares about that at all.
He has to care some. And I do think that where his resolve can be tested is I think in large part, a lot of people have been on his side. A lot of people who are adamantly opposed to him, but people like me who've been on his side publicly and fans who've been on his side publicly, I think they lose a little bit of like desire to support him when you start to look up and be like, oh man, seems like this fight is lost. And so if that impacts him, and it's all about his psychology. Does he care about that? Does that impact him? Does this matter to him? I find it hard to believe that anyone exists that it does not matter to at all. But as far as NFL quarterbacks are concerned, Lamar is one who seems like it matters less to him than it does to most.
And the last thing I would say about that is it questions our resolve in talking about him, in the sense that it becomes less significant, where it's just like, dude, come on, just take the $177 million. Like, let's get this done at this point. And that's going to sound crazy when you break it down and you're like, okay, you be the one to tell him to take $60 million less guaranteed. But also it's still like, come on, let's get this done. You're going to get your money. Let's play football. These are like, unless the offers are so insulting and we just don't know it because he doesn't have an agent leaking it, it now just seems silly to not get it done.
I mean, if I was Eric DeCosta, the GM for the Ravens, I would call Lamar today or text him 178 guaranteed. Yeah. Like, let's do this deal right now. 178 guaranteed over 5. And hopefully he picks up.
I'm just imagining him Logan Roying and just responding with off.
Oh man, we have to talk about that show at some point when there's a lull in the sports calendar, but that ain't now, because we got the NBA playoffs and game ones were incredible. So many injuries, which, like, I don't know. I imagine, I was just looking back at previous playoff seasons and wrote some things down, like the AD injury a couple years ago, and Kyrie and Harden. I think that was in 2021. KD and Clay in 19, Kawhi in 17, D Rose back in 2012. Those were like big injuries that like shifted. And then last year, obviously, we had like Middleton, and I think Embiid had it the eye injury, right? The
broken face.
Yeah. Orbital bone injury. But all of them in game ones that seemed like they could shift the series, and the kind of The one thing that I thought when looking at the bracket that I knew was going to happen was the Bucks would be in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Because their side of the bracket consists of a bunch of teams that are nowhere near as good as them. Everything else, every other portion of the bracket, if you break it into quartiles like that, is like really competitive on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But that one is now also up in the air because Giannis landed on his back and didn't finish the game with back contusions. And now I shift to like coin toss territory, if not favoring the Heat.
I mean, the Bucks have to beat the Heat even without Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, I'm not saying they will, but like if we have evaluated these teams correctly over the course of this year and prior years in playoff performance, you would think that the roster they have could continue to beat this, honestly, what has been a mostly mediocre Heat team that is now without Tyler Hero. But this brings me to a bigger thesis, which I think became incredibly clear this weekend. That is one that you believe in strongly. Never has the NBA regular season mattered less. Watching the games, they are so different. It looks like a different sport between the final games of the regular season and the postseason. Yeah. And I mean, the Heat exemplify that because Jimmy Butler paces himself in that way. But that goes across the board, across all these series. And it makes it almost makes the evaluation period start now.
Yeah.
Like, we know certain things to be true, but the stuff that we were unsure about, it's a totally new sample.
It's really hard to project because what you're doing is you're like imagining based on previous postseasons, less than based on the regular season that you just left. And yeah, it's hard to predict. And I think you're right. The Bucks should beat the Heat, but they won't. I think they're better than the Heat even without Giannis. And I think taking Hero out, Giannis and Hero is obviously not a equal step back, but
it's a trade that he'll make every day.
yeah, exactly. But the Bucks, I think, should, but they won't, because it's something different about taking out that centerpiece to your team, that it impacts you in a different way than the Heat are losing Tyler Hero, who is an important piece, but he's not Jimmy Butler. The Bucks have lost Jimmy Butler and then some. And I think we're all assuming that he'll come back, right? Like, that's my assumption. He'll be back.
The dude's knee bent the other way, and then he demolished the two series with pure physicality. Like, he's the most indestructible person seemingly in the league right now, taking that crown from LeBron, who had it for 17 years. And like, I just can't imagine him not playing in some capacity.
But I mean, I guess it depends on how bad this is, how much it lingers, what happens. And like,
I just internet doctored so hard. Don't take anything I said as fact.
And like, we're looking at a situation where I think the Knicks are better than the Cavs, and we could have the Knicks in the conference finals because the Heat could beat the Bucks. But it's a mess over there right now. We'll see if Giannis shows back up at some point, which I guess when you guys watch this, they'll be about to play, right? Yeah, they'll play again on Tuesday, so they wouldn't have played already. So
we'll get some leakage of injury news, maybe a doubtful, a questionable, a probable heading into it.
Just him not coming back though just kind of shocked me, but maybe that was just a precautionary measure for Bud. Is like, we can drop a game to the Heat and be all right. All right, and I mean the other injuries. So I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on injuries, but like I've been mocking the Lakers could make a run, and it feels like I shouldn't have been mocking it now. We're just one game in, so I'm fully in overreact mode. But I thought the Grizzlies would have no problem with the Lakers, but without Ja Morant, the Lakers, I think, probably are a better team. And then they're looking at maybe the Kings. Yeah. And their best case scenario, they could also end up in the conference final, which is something I would have told you was stupid 2 days ago.
Well, there's some so watching that game, even if Ja hadn't got hurt, like other than the 3-minute stretch where LeBron sort of lost his mind for a second, had those 3 turnovers, and there was AD was out of the game with a hurt shoulder, and the game flipped for a minute. Like, Lakers dominated 3/4 of that game. And I know we aren't counting quarters. That was the Celtics thing last year.
I remember that. That was so much fun.
It was so fun. But there's some interesting things there because Davis played as well as anyone can play. And there are smart people online who basically said that given load management, there was a really interesting case for Anthony Davis as Defensive Player of the Year this year. And he's not going to win the award. I don't even know if he'll make first either all defense team. It was clear he was the dominant defensive player in that game, period, including Jaren Jackson on the other side. And it was clear that he's able to get to the level he has in the past. And by that, I mean 2016 Pelicans Anthony Davis, which was 7 years ago, when he was, I don't know the numbers in front of me, but like a 34-15 in that first round series they lost in 5. And so there are questions. One, can he do it consistently? Because that's always the question with Anthony Davis. But the ceiling is there on a per game basis. And 2, you want to know what the big question for the Lakers is? Is LeBron going to be good enough to be a number 2 and be considered seriously after that game? Like,
he was bad.
He wasn't like wholly bad. He just
wasn't
he was
bad
LeBron.
for LeBron. Yeah. And
but,
I mean, he's turning the ball over and like careless passes. And then like, even on defense, he had like explosive defensive plays, but he wasn't good, like consistently good on defense. If the question is LeBron, I think the answer is always yes. I think the real question is, one of these times where AD gets up grabbing a limb, which is going to happen 2 times a game in every game he plays. One of these times I get nervous that one of those times it's going to be a significant issue, an issue that hinders his ability enough that it hurts the team. And that's the real thing.
Let's turn injury sliders off on Anthony Davis for a second. Okay. Assuming we get some version of LeBron that's between the second half of the play-in game when he was electric in the second half and the version we got in game 1. What chance do you give the Lakers to make the conference finals? Because for me, it's better than a 50-50 chance at that point. If you anchor the Anthony Davis injury sliders off, which is a massive if. But in that case,
getting past the Grizzlies with Ja Morant not being able to put a socks on because his hand is so messed up, I get them past there. If they see the Warriors in the next round, I don't see them getting past the Warriors. I do see them getting past the Kings though. And this is like with health and endurance and injury luck all on their side. Yeah, then I got him in the conference. I would go 33. I wouldn't go 50.
For me, this team, it's like it's really funny. Like, this team is going to be a bitch for anyone to play. They're so big and so physical. And I'm just thinking of a second round series where Jared Vanderbilt is like a 6'8" guy who's guarding Curry on the perimeter, and like he's not going to stop Steph Curry.
Yeah, nobody.
But he's going to be physical with them. Like we've seen physical guards make Curry's life problematic in the past.
And I've been talking trash about Austin Reeves, but he came up big again. I need to put some respect on his name. He's him, as he will tell you himself.
The question on the Lakers thing, I've seen some people being like, we owe Rob Pelinka an apology. Like, he did a really good job rebuilding the team. A narrative I think is really funny. We give LeBron all the shit for being a bad GM when these moves don't work. Do we give him any credit for then trading and getting out of his hole? Does the GM get any credit for his midseason trade?
No, I don't give him the blame, so I'm not going to give him the credit. You know how I feel. It's like, if your title is the GM, then you need to figure out how to generally manage. And if your best player is bullying you around and making you pick bad players, then you are not managing generally enough. So like, it's your responsibility. It falls in the category as your job, Rob Pelinka. So yes, I will give him the credit for rebuilding it, because I was not going to blame LeBron for the Russell Westbrook decision and the Caruso decision and the DeMar DeRozan decisions. I'm not blaming LeBron for that. I blame the man whose title it is, whose job it is. That's what you are responsible for. So if it requires you doing Jedi mind tricks on LeBron, then do them. If not, you're getting fired. So he did whatever he had to do to rebuild this roster. So we should celebrate him and also blame him when it's his fault. I'm just stalling, trying to run out the clock so we don't have to talk about
come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
About Suns clips.
Let's do it.
Durant's the best player in the history of the world.
Oh, get off your soapbox, old man. Let's talk about this accurately. There's This is one of the most fascinating player-to-player comparisons of Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant, because you know it as well as I do. Durant is a 7-foot alien and is the most talented scorer in the narrative-wise anyone has ever seen. That's what they say. Kawhi, this is like Pedro Martinez being debated against Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens has the 350 wins and all the accolades, and that's Kevin Durant. Pedro Martinez, we all saw him in 99. We know he was unhittable, and we've seen Kawhi in these playoff games. And do you truly believe, I'm asking you this not as a Kevin Durant stan who's on his corner, that Kevin Durant is the best player in this playoff series?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, if I had to draft this playoff series, they just take the players that are available, and I had to draft this series, I'm taking Kevin Durant first. And maybe it's my bias, but I get what you're saying. Like it's close. I'm not going to be mad if I get stuck with Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi scores and it looks almost effortless. And then there's his defensive presence, but
guarded Durant most of the game.
Right. And Kevin Durant was really good on defense too. But
at the end of the game when he actually guarded Kawhi.
Right. But his defense is, I mean, his scoring just feels like, I think the issue with this team is not Kevin Durant. While we want to boil this down to Durant
of course not.
Versus Kawhi, I think things will look different if Durant had the things that Kawhi has, including the coach.
You're telling me if you flip them, it would look better for Durant. If Durant was on the Clippers without Paul George and that team, it would look better for Kevin Durant than if Kawhi Leonard was playing in Durant's role.
I'm reaching. Just reaching. Maybe. I think the depth is a problem for
yes.
I mean, this is not revelatory. Like everyone knows that the depth is the problem. And Chris Paul is not Chris Paul. He's a guy
his liability
who looks like Chris Paul playing basketball in a way that is not always helpful. Devin Booker was incredible. Defensively, especially. I thought Devin Booker was incredible.
He was total alpha for that team.
Yeah. So yeah, but the lack of bench help. Yeah, I don't know. I can't let go of it. Like he's 7 feet tall and as a shooting guard. Like, all right, Kawhi outplayed him in this one game, but whatever. I want Kevin Durant. Maybe I don't have a good argument. Maybe I'm just a stan, but I is what I is. You can have Kawhi as much as you want. I'm taking Kevin Durant.
I just think it's like the Kawhi Leonard stuff is fascinating to me. Like we're talking about a guy who was the only guy in the early 2010s who could guard LeBron James.
Yeah.
On the entire planet.
Yeah.
We saw him go in 2017 and reach this level where he was like peak efficiency, absolutely on the medal stand with LeBron and Durant. Goes into the 2017 playoffs, is actually outplaying Durant before Zaza goes under his foot. His career goes a tiny bit sideways, leaves San Antonio, wins a title where he is again the best player in the postseason. And the reason I find them so fascinatingly intertwined is Durant 2 years ago.
And Clay got hurt in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but he was objectively the best player in the finals.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago,
because the best player, Kevin Durant, had popped his Achilles, but okay.
Sure. But it wasn't even clear then he was better than Kawhi. Kawhi was playing it like he's doing a Jordan impression. He does.
Yeah, he was. You're right. I can't disagree with that.
He does these things that Durant does. He scores from the mid-range.
This is unfair, but you think if Clay and Durant are healthy?
No, of course not.
Okay.
That team was a fait accompli. It was unbelievable.
Okay, go ahead. Proceed. Everything you said is true.
My thing is just that this is a fascinating playoff journey because even 2 years ago, I find them intertwined because when Kawhi blew out his knee, him and Durant were the two best players in the postseason. That was before Giannis went on his run and won it all, but Durant's toe was on the line and he was almost beating the Bucks on his own. And Kawhi was almost dragging the Clippers to the finals. Like the gap between these two is, I think, purely because Durant is more famous and because he's played more. He hasn't load managed as much, but like on a game by game basis, I actually just think that we've sort of underrated that Kawhi is just as good as Kevin Durant at all the things Kevin Durant does, other than, maybe getting open shots because of length.
And style and personality, I think, play into it also. Like, as much as Kawhi, I'm sure, wants to win, he doesn't seem to have whatever it is that Durant has in him that is like wants to be seen as great. I know Kawhi, I mean, I don't know. I assume that all great players want to be seen as great, but Kawhi doesn't put voice to it the way that Durant does, or he does that article back in the day about being number 2 all the time. And then he's so clearly chasing something at all these different locations. And I don't know, that story I think elevates Durant, but we just have more of Durant too. And that's your point about injuries and load management is like Durant was drafted and was the guy from day one.
Yeah.
Kawhi like kind of came out of nowhere and was on Duncan's team, Ginobili's team, Parker's team. It was never his team there, even when he was the most impactful player in those in that late championship run. But it was never his team, and we just didn't talk about him that way. And he's like, we don't think about him as the scorer, even though he is more than capable and shown it time and time again. But like when you think of Kawhi Leonard, you think of defense before you think of anything else. And I think it's hard to have a player like that be in the conversation with the other players, even though it's not true that, I mean, I guess it is true that his best attribute is defense, but it's not true to assume that he's like a defensive player. It's just what we think about.
He does things in very similar ways to Kevin Durant. He is right there with Durant as the 2 most efficient mid-range players in the league. And he scores at an incredibly similar clip efficiency-wise. Like he was another 50, 41, close to 90% from the free throw line this year. I know Durant was 55, but like they're very similar in the way they do things. And you think of defense, you think Kawhi Leonard, I think of playoff assassin. Like if this series goes 6 or 7, I think he is clearly the more trustworthy player down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking of like the specific skills. It's like you think of LeBron, you probably think of him as like a passer or like a facilitator. You think of Durant,
physical marvel.
Yeah, you think of Durant, you think of him as a big ass scorer who's like, that's the thing. When you think of Kawhi, his trademark is what you said at the beginning of this, is he was the only person that could credibly defend LeBron James. Like you think of his defense before anything else. And I'm still waiting to see somebody give me a good reason why they shouldn't just run, give Durant the ball at the top of the key and screen, let him get to that mid-range jump shot. Like nobody can. They
should. No, they should. And actually, to your point about coaching, they trolled the Suns into playing the way they wanted to, into putting the drop coverage under the basket and letting Ayton take little floaters. And I just think about that game. I think if you lined up Zubac and Ayton, you would assume they play opposite ways. Like Ayton with like little floaters and not dominating on the glass, not dominating with physicality. And Zubac was just like stronger and muscled him and played more physically. And, you know, the Suns are using Durant like an elevated version of Mikal Bridges. And we've seen what Mikal Bridges can do in other places, but like Durant needs to be the number 1 focal point of that offense. And right now he's playing like someone who's played 9 games with that team.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the finals,
an excellent 9 games.
We didn't even talk about how ridiculous Westbrook's game was. And do we expect that from him going forward? But to your point, why wasn't Kevin Durant shooting that last shot? Well, I guess they've liked the matchup better than having Kawhi on Durant and having Devin Booker on Russell. But yeah, I don't know, that it makes me sad. Kevin Durant's not the focal point. He's still great, but it makes me sad. I just want him to shoot those pull-ups for the end of eternity.
Well, let's spin this forward a tiny bit before I let you out of your misery. What
you can feel the sadness.
I can feel it. I saw it drain from your face, the joy. What do you think the narrative of this series is going to be going forward? Because I don't think this is coming into this. I thought it was going to be a very straightforward series without Paul George. I still think the Suns will probably win, but I no longer think it is a straightforward series. How do you think this narrative plays out is it about Westbrook? Is it about Chris Paul being a liability? Is it about Kawhi or Durant?
I mean, it has to be about Kawhi or Durant, I think. I mean, I guess Devin Booker's in that tier also. But I think it's about Kawhi. It's like how far Kawhi can carry this team. Because I think while they're deeper, they're not more talented at the top. And Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. I think that's the story of this is Kawhi going to run out of gas? Can his body hold up? Can he defend Durant while also going score for score with Durant? That's going to be the determining factor in this series. And I mean, Ty Lue seems to be on top of things. Monty tried to run that backup lineup with Devin Booker at the running the show. It was like, come on, Monty.
My word for this series is anxiety. The anxiety is going to build for the Phoenix Suns. It's going to build for Chris Paul not getting over the hump. It's going to build for Durant being on another team that was favored to win the conference. And I think it's going to be more than this series. I think there are legitimate stakes for Durant here. I think
Chris Paul does so many things that piss me off. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But there are legitimate stakes here. Like, as much as Durant wants his historical place ironed out and given to him in his flowers for being one of the greatest players of all time, losing a series to someone who is on par with you when you guys are the guys, that stuff matters, and that stuff is interesting because Kawhi has sort of been lurking on this medal stand as the bronze medal forward of this generation. And that is not set in stone.
And Durant is one of those guys that people seem to want to tear down and are looking for reasons to, like, this. To your point about anxiety, is like it has to be something that's weighing on him because we know he cares. And there are people who do the bus driver thing and they're looking for reasons. You're one of those people. That stupid ass.
I was just laughing because we were just joking that he wasn't the bus driver in that game.
I mean, he was. Yeah, he wasn't at those final moments, but he's the best player.
Yeah.
Anyway. So there's a lot of pressure on him going forward. I don't think the same amount of pressure is on Kawhi, in part because they expected to lose because they lost Paul George. But we'll see how it goes. The last thing I'll say is Chris Paul is really, really smart basketball player, but he does all these little like bad basketball player things. Like, it's kind of like Patrick Beverley, except he's not. Like, you don't have to be like that. And he always seems so in control of the offense and in control of the game, but in less control of his emotions. And it's a very weird combination that I didn't know was possible. But I guess when you're undersized for the entire league, that like you are just a pit bull all the time. And there aren't many guys, aren't many guys who've had the success at his size, but there aren't many guys at his size that even get to the NBA and play in the NBA. And he's an all-time great at his position. But what comes with that is nut punches and jabs and throat chops and all types of garbage that I'm just like, come on, Chris, please stop. I want to love you. Don't make it so hard.
The secondary battle of demonstrative point guards with him and Westbrook is going to be fascinating to watch. Whoever loses that series and get crushed between the two of them.
Like Westbrook, I feel like the little stuff that Paul does would be more consistent with the Westbrook personality. But Westbrook doesn't do stuff like that. He just flies around and just like he was a Tasmanian devil in that game. And he will likely be one in the next game. And who knows if you're going to come out on the good side or the bad side, but he's going to give you a lot of action. And it's something that you have to account for. That both teams, frankly, even if he's on your roster, you have to account for. Like, all right, Russ going to do some wild stuff. Let's make sure that we are here to pick up the pieces around it. But yeah, there's getting second and third and fourth shot opportunities because the Tasmanian devil, no one can box him out, is certainly valuable. Except you can't separate that from the confidence that he has to keep shooting when he's 3 for 19. Like, stop that. Set a screen, Russ. Set a screen. Oh, well. All right, Charlie. It's been fun.
He's so good.
How has Domonique been lately?
Bad or good?
Let's find out. This is Roses and Thorns.
All right, everybody's favorite part of the show.
It's not necessarily, but that's so sweet of you to say. Y'all, Domonique got a haircut for the first time in forever. I feel like I want to sing that Elsa song. Or is it Anna? For the first time in... It's real sad. I don't come on here citing Disney things because I know that Disney pays your checks. I just have the brain of someone who's obsessed with Disney. Like last week it was Operation Dumbo Drop and Polly. This week it's Elsa already.
You can't blame it on it being a parent though, because you had a Disney infatuation That might be aggressive.
Operation Dumbo Drop and Polly were like definitely before when I was a child and almost or a preteen who couldn't see PG-13 movies. And for my baby moon, not that it was really baby moon, but when I was pregnant with my second child, Avery, our oldest, was 2, and I was like, we should go on one trip before we have him. I was like, let's go.
Yeah, terrible. I love Disney World. It's a wonderful, happiest place on earth. But I mean, we've been there a little too many times. Well, but it's nice to mix it up every now and then. Go somewhere different, ski, go to a beach.
Or go to Echo Hill. He got back from his camping trip last week, guys. He spent 2 nights, 3 days out in the woods with my son and my son's class. And of course, like, other chaperones. And he had the best time.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's unfair to call it a camping trip because we weren't like camping. We were outside for all of the day, but we would go into these like dorm type places that had electricity and running water. So I feel like it's not fully camping, but we were in the woods and the swamps and the Chesapeake watershed and feeding goats and doing all types of stuff for 3 days. It was surprisingly better than I thought it was, but it was funny just watching the kids interact and watching all the girls try to be like adults while all the boys try to be wild animals. And of course, it's not all on either side, but like there's a couple boys that are like sitting down reading during free time. But the rest and those are the outliers. The rest of them are just doing physical things and communicating with grunts and they had jokes too. I was surprised at like how mature some of their jokes were at the age of 10. But hey, I guess I think back.
PG-13 movies.
Yeah, I guess thinking back, I knew about stuff. I had my ghetto.
I didn't. I knew about nothing. I was still watching Polly.
That's why we have to buy books for each other every now and then. Anyway.
But he wasn't my only source on this. Another parent that was there was like, none of the boys showered for 2 nights. And I was like, no. I named 2. I was like, those 2 showered, to like how they're outliers. I was like, no, those 2. Oh, they're clean. Not all the boys didn't shower. But I was just like, ew. I was so worried when I put my son back in my car at the end of the day, because even though Domonique chaperoned, he left. And then my son rode the bus back with the kids. And Domonique had to get straight to record something. So he left like a little bit before the bus pulled off. And so when I picked my daughter up from school, I just picked my son up too, since I was there. And I was like, windows down, start airing the car out. But he actually didn't smell that bad.
I mean, in the Dirty Boys' defense, they didn't have a shower time. You were supposed to shower, like their days were pretty well scheduled. You were supposed to shower during one of the free periods. And what 10-year-old is going to stop playing their games, or they were playing football every day or playing tag or playing whatever games they were playing, to go take a shower? So like then we get back to the dorms and we got to get ready to do a night hike or something like that. And then we get back and it's bedtime. It's time to settle down in bed. But I felt like it was funny because they had
Did you shower?
Yeah, I showered every night.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I showered after bedtime. When the kids were down, I would go take a shower. But the way the dorm was set up, it's like one long hallway with like an entrance in the middle. There's 4 rooms on either side. And in all the rooms, there were a collection of 5 to 6 boys. And it quickly devolved into like jail rules where they had like Echo Hill gangs where they were trying to steal stuff from each other's room. They was repping their room and fighting with other rooms. It was really absurd. And I felt like a parole officer standing in the hallway, breaking up fights, fake ones.
Not a parole officer. That's not.
Oh yeah, a correctional officer. Yeah, they weren't on parole. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't.
Yeah, when you said that to me, I was like, no, that's not what you mean. Well, I'm proud of you. That is your rose. Like, it was your rose last week when you were about to do it. It's still your rose because I could not have done it. So you are a hero. I love you. Another pre-rose another rose that it will be a pre-rose is I may or may not. I'm contemplating taking a girls trip this weekend. We went to the beach a couple weeks ago at the end of their spring break, and it was just so relaxing for me there that I was like, I'm gonna come back here. And so I'm contemplating a girls trip. By girls trip though, I don't mean like a real girls trip. I mean me and my 2 girls, my 12-year-old and my 6-year-old, or 7. She's 7. It was her birthday over the weekend. Me and my 12 and 7-year-old might go because Declan has all his sports games and then like a service project that he's actually really excited for because in Rock Creek Park, and like he loves nature, and then a birthday party, and he doesn't want to miss those things. So I'm like, an idea. You can stay with your daddy and we can go. I haven't put the tickets yet though, because with all the rain in Florida recently, I was like, the kids are off school Friday. So I was like, we could leave Thursday evening or Thursday, pick them up early even. I wouldn't do that. Haha. We could leave like Thursday. I found a 5 o'clock flight. I was like, I can grab baby from school and rush to the airport, basically.
This is one of those things that like, it's like you and dessert. When we go to dinner, you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll get dessert. When you put the maybes out there, it's like, maybe I'll buy this really expensive purse. When you start putting the maybes out there, I already know what time it is. I already know.
He's like, I'm gonna help you try to find a cheap ticket though.
Yeah, I know it's happening because you don't. Yeah, that's not. I guess I don't know if it's a conscious strategy. If you're just like, man, I'm just prepare him for this. Like, I'm gonna buy this overpriced bag. So I'm gonna start saying maybe for a month just to get him ready for it. Or if you actually are unsure, but I know that you're going to Miami this weekend. I know that you're buying the things that you want to buy.
Quite honestly, now I'm like, I wonder if Jasmine wants to come too. And then I can really hang out. I have a good fun trip and you know who really wants to go even more than me? Avery, I mentioned it unfortunately like out loud. She's like, so about that trip to Miami, and she had the nerve to mention it in the car this morning. We're just trying to have a happy Monday, dropping off the 3 kids. We don't always have happy car rides, especially not on Mondays. People don't really want to go to school on Mondays. And so Avery's like, so Miami this week or not? And I was like, I'm trying to bring this up in front of your brother, because while he doesn't want to go, he also thought, like I mentioned to him a long time, I was like,
he does want to go. He just doesn't want to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. Yeah, he doesn't want to choose this over his activities. He loves the beach. So I asked him though, when I first crossed my mind, like right when we got back, and I looked at the calendar and saw their day off was like a spontaneous or kind of spontaneous day off, and that they only announced it a couple weeks ago because it was like, since there were no snow days this year, they were like, well, we have a snow day, a spring snow day, like to give the teachers, you know, they count snow days in the schedule. So since they didn't have to take any, they're giving them off this Friday. And so when I realized that, and after we had such a great time, I was like, hey Deck, like, how would you feel like, you know, skipping your football games? No, I will not miss my football games. Like, that's really great of you. Okay, girls, how would you feel skipping your soccer games? We'll definitely miss soccer games. The little one don't want to play at all, which I'll get to in a second. But actually in the end, they actually don't have any this weekend, so they won't be missing any. Yeah, I know, it's like perfect. The stars are aligning. We should have a girls trip. But the stars. Oh, actually, Jasmine can't go. Jasmine's going away. Shucks. There goes because my cousin Megan's going to be there too. So it really could have been a fun trip for me. Okay. I could have left the kids in the room with Jasmine and been at all the places in Miami that I only hear about like in rap songs, because I don't go on real girls trips. I go on girls trips with my daughters. Yeah. She really wants to go, and she brought it up in the car, and definitely acted like he was fine with us going without him. But then when Avery brought it up, he was like, hold on, you're not joking? You really would go on a trip to a beach without me? And I was like, yes, I would.
I mean, we've done it before. We went to Puerto Rico without them, but he'll be okay. He'll get over it.
Without his sisters too, without the girls. It's like that I'm bringing his sisters and not him, which I don't like either. I like to keep the family close, you know? I like us to do things as a unit. So I think that's another reason I have mixed feelings about going.
He'll be fine. We'll have a good time. You're already going.
We'll have a good time. You mean you and Declan will have a good time?
Yeah.
Okay. He has a busy schedule, man. Y'all got this.
I mean, it's not gonna be any more busy this weekend. We just passed. We had 4 games on one day with a birthday dinner, a birthday party the day before, and another game on Sunday.
And the kids had 2 birthday parties to get to in the middle of that day.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was a record.
Hectic.
We had to call in some backup for some driving. So I think I can handle 1 kid with 3 games this weekend. We'll be all right.
And like on the one hand,
fun to do on Friday, maybe.
Yeah, well, he has a birthday party at 4 on Friday though, too.
Well, I mean, if he's not going to school, I got from wake up till 4.
You never know. If you let him stay up late, he might not. And I feel like on the one hand, I'm like, well, I mean, it's fair. If anything, I'm just taking 2 kids and just leaving you with 1.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It's always fair. It's one of those things I was thinking where you got a lot of the dads that I talked to after I got back from Echo Hill was like, man, you got a lot of points. That's like bull doo-doo. Like, I mean, when does anyone like I don't have like an account, and I don't ever remember being like, hey, I'm gonna do this because of that. Like, it's not like I'm trying to figure out how I could use these points, because I feel like these type of points expire fast as like a week from now. You're not gonna be like, hey, Why don't you go on a guys trip to Vegas with your friends?
I told you should go see Air last night.
Get the
with my brother and sister. I don't really like going to movies.
Go see a movie. That's my cash in is I get to go see a movie after the kids are gone to bed. That's not a cash in for 3 days in the woods with animal children.
I didn't go to dinner Wednesday when you got back because I said that would be messed up with me, even with a babysitter coming, because I know even with a babysitter they'll bother you. And in fact, you went out and you went before. Like, I'm trying to let you live your life.
I'm not saying that you don't. I know I'm capable of doing these things. It's just a funny thing where it's like you have all these points. People are like, you got all the brownie points. What you gonna do with that? Like, I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe
take me to Vegas for my birthday to see Usher.
Yeah, maybe other people's relationships work differently, where you have like a true accounting of how many points have been earned versus used. But that's not how this one works.
Yeah, I don't think that's healthy. Let's not. Because, you know, there are going to be times in a relationship where it is like equal points put in on equal side, and there are going to be times where it's not. And then, like, you can't value the same things the same. Like, so how will you ever you can't quantify everything.
I'm not quantifying anything.
My thoughts on why that
just would make me sad.
Would it make you sad? So it sounds like you're feeling like you would feel like you have a lot more points in the bucket.
No, I was just saying it make me sad if we're out here like tallying up points like that.
Okay.
Relationship.
I think it would make you sad to look at the tally. I'd be like, goodbye.
No, the tally is not a thing that we should ever look at. I was just saying that, like, I feel like I deserve a certificate that I can use, like those coupons at some point. Because
does this man not hear that I've given him 2 weeks of roses about this? It feels like he doesn't appreciate roses.
Oh, guys. My bad. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Laurel. That's what that thing is called, right? I mean, you get like
okay. Yeah, fine. You got
flowers,
that.
A full
I posted on my Instagram stories all about it. Yeah, I have been praising you.
That is
left and
that's
right.
Like when if I were to like buy I did this when I was a kid once. I bought my mom a Nerf gun for Christmas. But I feel like that's what you posted me on Instagram is like you giving me a gift that you actually want. Whereas like I don't give it because I'm on Instagram.
Well, I'm just saying cool. I am praising you left and right.
Thank you.
Doing what I can.
Love praise. That's my love language is praise.
It may not
also
be, but...
left and right. I would
and
like
what did I say I was going to do for you that I couldn't do for you? Why I didn't go out Wednesday night? I wanted to make sure it wasn't my fault that you had to go to dinner with Pablo Wednesday night. I wanted to make sure that you could be left alone in the basement. Like once the kids were like settled and we done, I did have to like run back and forth and run kids around. But I was like, he's been around people. Whether it's in the woods or not, he could be at like a resort. He could be like in the Galapagos, like somewhere he'd be excited to go, but not being there alone, like having no free time for 3 days sounds like he shared a bunk like with all the teachers and chaperones. Like that sounds very, very challenging for him. And so I was like, I can't do anything on Wednesday because I need to be home to like repel the children from him. Like to be like, no, daddy gets alone time in the basement with some tequila. He has earned this. And it's not my fault you had to go out.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I'm not looking to cash it in. I just thought it was funny because all the dads were telling me that, and I was like joking with them. Like, I don't know how
they all know they don't get points either.
Yeah, I don't know how this works.
Be funny.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that you just say. Like happy wife, happy life.
Exactly. Now that one is true.
Oh, it is.
Okay. That one is so totally true. And I think you see it, but I think it also was happy husband, happy life. Like when was it? A couple times recently we were out and you
all the time.
You claim, no, you're not grumpy all the time, but you are grumpy sometimes. And you claim to not notice this. So one thing that gets him really grumpy, guys, is I will admit that like when my son has sugar, you see the difference in him, and it's like a painful difference. So like sugar is, but he's a child and who likes sugar. So like, we don't like totally restrict him on it. But like when Domonique, like Easter morning, obviously there was a little bit of candy in the baskets. Then we went to brunch and there was beignets at brunch for recovering powdered sugar. And like, I can't remember what, oh no, he got shrimp and grits. He didn't even get anything like sweet, but the beignets and the Charlie Temple. So there was a lot of sugar Easter morning, but mine was at least it's in the morning. So yeah, my impact his behavior, but like I'd rather have it in the morning and then be done. And then, but before we even left for church, Domonique was like, putting all the candy. And then it sucks because the girls who don't have the same negative reaction to sugar, they also have to have it limited because it's like, we can't keep theirs around and move my son's. So he's like putting all the candy hurriedly in like trash bags from there, or we didn't throw them away, but he hid like in grocery bags to like tie up and hide before we go to church. And then you had a stank mood, which like you can claim that you did not notice you had. And I think it was like you were either mad at me for like giving them access to sugar, or like mad about sugar, or mad that Jesus rose from the dead. But it was like Easter and like, you know, a joyous, nice day, brunch with our family, and you were like grumpy as you know what. And when I tried to call you out on it, you were like, no. But then it just set the mood for the whole family. We were all just like trying not to talk. So yes, happy wife, happy life, but also like when you're unhappy,
you misremember.
It does affect the mood.
You misremember these things. Nobody cares when I'm unhappy. Like, it's just not a thing that's
yes,
real.
we do.
Nobody cares.
It really
it's
changes
fine.
the mood.
It doesn't change the mood.
No,
everybody was having a ball.
Domonique, it feels like we're walking on eggshells.
Nobody walks on eggshells around me.
Yes.
Nobody treats me with that type of like fear. No one is scared of me being sad or upset.
I mean, not fear,
but
I'm like, oh, let me not piss him off more.
Please,
no,
you don't
honey,
care.
When
about
you,
this.
Lauren, okay, I wish you were here right now. She's coming over in a bit. Lauren was at brunch with us, my sister. And like both of us were like giving each other eyes, like, oh Lord, like, and like no one, we weren't having like a fluid conversation. It wasn't like when you get in your little grumpy stink mood, it sinks the whole ship. Yes, it's true. And we both have talked on here before about how like we notice like that when one of our children is really unhappy, it impacts our happiness too. So I really think, yes, like happy wife, happy life is a nice rhyming saying, but I think that's so true for like the whole family, like all of us kind of rise and fall together. So
cool. I mean, maybe I was
happy.
I think Easter turned out just fine, but
it did. We got back on track.
Oh, because I
don't remember being a little bit grumpy at brunch.
I don't. I remember you saying I was grumpy, but I don't remember being grumpy. But that is fine. I guess sometimes I get grumpy. I mean, generally, you and my like understanding of or relationship with food and our children is always something that's like frustrating, where it's just like, I don't know, just sugar all the time, even if it makes everybody's day worse. It's like, hey, have at it, kids. It's just sugar it up.
I'm not that awful.
I didn't say you were awful. It's just you don't have that.
We did have a birthday party for my daughter though on Friday, and the meal was pancakes because it was a sleep under. So it was like having a sleepover in one night kind of, and then they went home at 8. They wore their pajamas over. Instead of having breakfast the next morning, they had breakfast for dinner, which I really tried to dissuade my daughter from, because like ordering pizza is so much easier than having to make pancakes. But my aunt and Domonique made a lot of pancakes, and we had bacon and eggs and fruit. So pancakes
and syrup, and
pancakes and syrup, fruit,
and cookies,
and then later after the movie there was cupcakes and cookies, and I'm like, well, girls, maybe we should take the cookies home. Here's some Ziplocs. So
they
that
destroyed my little man cave.
A little bit. Yes, they did. They watched Zombies, another Disney hit. It's actually, I don't want to say it's not a hit, but I'm so tired of seeing Zombies 1, 2, and 3 because my daughter is obsessed with them and just watches them anytime she can watch a screen. But yeah, it looked awful because I gave them popcorn in Domonique's room. But I mean, that's what you do. So they also had popcorn, sugar-free. It was not kettle corn. It was Skinny Pop. So
nice. There we go. Skinny Pop for the kids. Yeah, it was fun. She had a great time. The kids at her soccer game, they were saying, we had a great time at your party. It was fun. Aww. And then she, at her soccer game, was her normal self, like probably one of the bigger and stronger and faster kids, but just does not care. No. Just out there, occasionally playing hard for like a second, and then
I'm so sweaty.
And then do a cartwheel. Like, I don't like soccer. I don't care if I might have the ability to be good at it, but it's just...
But I asked her because like she had broken her arm in the fall, remember? So like when the girls in her grade were signing up, when it's like parent driven. So a parent like led a sign up around like girls basketball. And I was like, Emmy, like, you know, I think then it was like it was coming off. I was like, Emmy, do you want to play basketball? So you'll have to miss the first couple. This was in winter. You'll have to miss the first couple games. I think once she broke her arm, it was fall soccer season. So she missed the last couple soccer games. And I was like, do you want to the last one? Do you want to go get your trophy? And I really didn't want to take her, if I'm being honest.
I'm
not going to get no trophy if I can't play. I'm like, you actually don't want to go when you have to play? She said, well, I definitely don't want to go if I can't play. So it's like, cool, good, because I don't want to go to sit and watch other girls play, even though I love them. They're sweethearts. And so for basketball, she chose not to sign up. But then she's always like, but why not? My friends said they have basketball. How come I don't get to go? I'm like, because you said you didn't want to, and your arm was broken for, a little bit of the season. Anyway, so then when it came time to sign up for spring soccer, I was like, Emerson, do you want to play soccer? And she's like, yes. I'm like, but do you remember how much you didn't like playing soccer and ball? And like, you would complain that we made you play soccer when we didn't. You said you wanted to, but we didn't let you
Doing
play
it again.
And she was like, yeah, no, I don't want to play. And then she came home and her was like, my friend said I need to sign up for soccer. I want to play soccer with my friends. Like, she just wants to talk to her friends. So after first practice, and it was like, it got hot here early. So it was like a hot day, like after afternoon. I know, I love details. I said, Emmy, did you have fun at practice? And one of the girls' dads, he's so sweet. He coaches. He has so much patience with those little girls. But one of the dads, who's the coach, apparently had said something about he might bring donuts to the game. And so Emerson said, I only like it for donuts. Otherwise, we sit in a circle and sometimes we have to kick a ball. And I hate kicking a ball. And so I'm like, so why the hell? This was before even the first game. I'm like, so why did we waste our time?
Yeah. Declan's team Declan had a soccer game and they came up short in their soccer game. They did win their football game on a last second Hail Mary, one of their football games. Declan had an interception in that game. Then they lost the other game. He had an interception in that game too. So I think he didn't care much about it. I saw none of the
ends or any of these games.
Yeah. Avery's game, this is the last year. So she's been on the same team with the same girls, the sisters, they call themselves, since what, first grade, kindergarten?
Probably first grade. Kindergarten was probably co-ed.
First grade. And they play 2 seasons a year or something like that. Anyway, they've been playing together for a long time. And I think over the course of this time, they've lost like 3 or 4 games.
Not the whole time, but I would say since COVID, they've lost 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. And they're probably much better than the girls in their league. They need to play in a more difficult league, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. Their game, so many details, so many unnecessary details. I've already got to the end. You see how I just shut it down? Avery scored 2 goals in like the first 30 minutes and then played defense the rest of the game, and they won. It was fun. It's good times in a rainstorm.
I know. I was like, they can't just cancel this so I can get on with my evening. I did make a lot of the games. I just wasn't there for the ends.
Oh yeah, then we had to rush over to Cactus to have a big family dinner, and then Declan and I did a 3-mile walk home because we were both sick of all them damn people. That was the highlight of my weekend. We just walked
and so Declan should enjoy that I'm taking his sisters to Miami or whatever beach I can find that has good weather and decent price tickets this weekend.
We don't need your terrible spin.
He can have just time with his daddy, his wonderful daddy, who deserves all the roses because he and all the points and all the buckets and all the accounts, because he is a hero who chaperoned a field trip and is going to be here taking Declan to all his activities while me and the girls are at the pool.
Cashing in all my points when we go to Vegas for a threesome. Bye.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.